Howdy there again. I'm actually in McLean, Virginia, but I'm visiting Great Falls of the Potomac. Now, through a quirk of history and geography, the Great Falls of the Potomac are entirely in the state of Maryland, because the border of Maryland and Virginia is actually the far shore of the Potomac River. But like the American side of the Niagara Falls, the best view of the falls is actually from Virginia. So the address for the small National Park Service facility on this side of the river is 9200 Old Dominion. I think it's Old Dominion Drive. I'll double check that and put it in the comment section. But it's McLean, Virginia. It's very easy to find. There's normally a $5 admission fee. Today the admission station was closed. Sometimes that happens, but I don't make any promises on whether there's a pattern to that or anything. Normally there is a $5 admission fee. I'm in the car because this is typically a fairly crowded location, and it's also fairly noisy, so I just figured I'd record the introduction from in the car. But this is definitely the largest waterfall by volume in the state of Maryland, and so I figured it was appropriate to make it the third episode. It's also the closest to DC. Cascade Falls was the closest to Baltimore. This is the closest to DC, so it's also certainly the most visited waterfall in Maryland. It's a few minutes from Washington. It's a few minutes from most of the major suburban areas in Virginia, and quite a few of them in Maryland. So it's a pretty popular site. In the winter, it's not that bad, but in the summer, it's a big picnic site. So it can become very crowded. If I remember correctly, the Maryland side gets particularly bad because I'm not sure there's an admission fee, but we'll check when we get over there. But I seem to recall. But I know this side gets pretty bad too. There's quite a few people just picnicking along the sides of the in the grassy areas around the visitor center and whatnot. So. But then again, it's great for people watching because you can encounter, 20 or 30 different languages in the span of 5 minutes. So it's a pretty interesting spot for people watching. But I'm going to go ahead and proceed to the overlooks of the falls. I'm not going to go as in depth with the trail itself because it's fairly self-evident how to get to the falls. I'm just going to give you some video of the falls mostly. This is a fairly well-signed park, but from the visitor center, you want to make a right turn at the trail junction to get to the overlooks. The overlooks are well signed. Everything is pretty well labeled, so I don't really think it's necessary for me to do a walkthrough to get to each one. Like I said, the overlooks are fairly well signed. There's a directional sign at each one, so I'm going to refrain from, doing a full walk. Although the sign says that the first overlook has a partially obscured view and doesn't seem to have a very high opinion of it, it's actually my personal favorite overlook. because you're physically closest to the falls. And here is the view from the second overlook. It's my least favorite of the 3 overlooks. But the second and third overlooks, I should mention, are ADA accessible. So if you have somebody in a wheelchair or who otherwise requires a ramp, unlike the first observation point, they can visit these two easily, whereas the other one is all rocks and it's quite frankly an ankle buster. Look carefully. I know the sun is kind of obscuring it a little bit. You can see the overlook on the Maryland side from here, which is where we're going next. Just before you get to the third overlook, there's this terrifying flood marker here. If you look out over the third overlook, you can see why particularly that 1936 flood number is a little terrifying, because that's like a good 80 feet above the water level of the falls. And here is the view from the third overlook, which the National Park Service labels as the best view. It's certainly the widest view. I don't know if I agree with them that it's the best. Okay, I'm now on the Maryland side of the falls in the parking lot. I'm not going to record a whole lot of commentary because it's very crowded today. Word has apparently gotten out that the pay stations on both sides of the river are not open, so it's more crowded than I've usually seen it, and it's usually pretty crowded. So I'll just be taking some video of the falls. Now, the Maryland side of the falls, the view isn't as good, but you get to cross a couple of the small side channels of the, there's a couple of off-leash dogs in the parking lot right now. And annoying. I walk my dog on a leash. I wish people would do the same, but, you know, I don't care how friendly your dog is, it belongs on a leash. But, that's just an aside. The interesting thing about the Maryland side of the falls, well, they're both the Maryland side of the falls, but the Maryland access is that you get to cross several of the little side channels of the Potomac and go on the islands that are actually sort of in the middle of the falls. So although the view isn't as good, it's still interesting. Now, both entrances, the Virginia and Maryland entrances, are a $5 per vehicle access fee when the fee stations are operating. The Maryland side is actually a C&O Canal property, which is part of the National Park Service as well. But rather than being a separate little entity, it's actually part of the larger C&O Canal property. So, let's go take some video of the falls. Like I said, the Maryland side of the falls is a C&O Canal property, and you can actually see one of the locks here that's been restored. The falls itself is accessible past the visitor center, which is on the left here. There's actually a Coast Guard helicopter flying by. I hear you. Those were bicyclists. You actually have to cross over the C&O Canal to get to the overlook, which is well signed. And we'll just point out that this vessel here is, I believe, used for tours of the canal, the parts that are operating. You can see from its size what would have been capable of traveling the canal when it was in operation. You actually pass several of the old locks as you head downstream. This one being Lock 19. And although it's not a natural waterfall, you can see how the spillway worked for the excess water in the locks. This is the water spilling out of the spillway for Lock 19. After passing Lock 18, you can see that it's rather well signed, the direction of the overlook. Here is the view from the Maryland overlook.